Hello, and welcome to the mentorDINO podcast. I'm your host, Katelyn Rossier. I am an architect and founder of mentorDINO. Join me each week as I speak with amazing professionals in and around the architecture, engineering, and construction industry, as we are all part of a larger interconnected community. We discuss everything from career stories, lessons learned, and advice for others finding their own unique career path. Thank you to all of our current subscribers, and if you're new, welcome to the conversation. And if you like this episode, please do me a favor by hitting subscribe, like, or share it with a friend. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support them on their own unique career journey. On today's episode of the mentorDINO podcast, I would like to welcome Dory Azar, architect and content creator out in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Thank you, Dory, for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thanks for having me on, Katelyn.
And if anybody doesn't know Windsor, I didn't learn this until I worked for a firm headquarters in Detroit, that Windsor is actually south of the United States, and it throws me off every time I'm in Detroit.
I went to school in Michigan, and it blew people's minds when I told them I drove north to get to school because of where we were coming in from. So yeah, it's there's your fun fact to start.
Yeah, exactly. So, but to get everybody else up to speed on who you are, Dory, besides a Canadian living near Detroit, Michigan, do you mind introducing yourself, letting my listeners know a little bit about your experience and journey so far in your education and career?
Absolutely. So my name is Dory Azar, and I'm a licensed architect in Ontario, Canada, and recently actually in Michigan as well. I just got my license in September in Michigan. My education journey, I started locally here in Windsor. I went to St. Clair College for my 3-year architectural technology program. Thought I was done with school. I was like, okay, I got my little diploma. I'm going to move on with my life. Met a girl, ended up marrying her. She convinced me along the way to go back to school. So I did my bachelor's and my master's at Lawrence Technological University in Southfield, Michigan. And then went on to get my license from there, working at various firms, both in Windsor and Detroit. I did spend some time working in Detroit during my internship, and went on to run my own practice for about 14 years up until this year, where I made the full transition to what we call it, architect slash brand ambassador slash product consultant at RIB SpecLink. And maybe we'll get into what that whole role entails later. But yeah, so that's where I find myself today, is working with RIB SpecLink as their sort of brand ambassador, helping promote the product.
Yeah, I was going to say creating an intro for you is hard because you're doing so much, and it's like you're over here, you're jumping around with this company and your company. So I figured I would have so many questions on what all you're doing and juggling everything.
No, and I'm terrible at introducing myself, so I hope I hope that at least covered sort of the basics of it. But I'm sure we'll get into it.
Yeah, so what got you interested in architecture? I know you've kind of pivoted now, but where did staying in the AEC industry come from?
So I still love being in architecture, being architecture adjacent now, how I say it. But what originally got me studying architecture is a weird sort of collision of two big interests that happened when I was pretty young. So as a kid, I'm the third of four sons. So I have three brothers, no sisters. And growing up, I just love to draw, Kayla. And I know that's the same answer as everybody that you've probably ever had on this podcast. Is I just love to draw. I love to draw. I love to create. I had a huge imagination. I was uh, always doing something with empty cereal boxes or scraps of paper, whatever. Just creating things. And parallel to that, my dad was in construction, and he would obviously talk to us about that, and we got to see some job sites and stuff. So it was this like sort of constant interest in drawing with the influence of construction. My dad would bring drawings home, and he had a drafting table. And I thought, oh my God, that's like the coolest job ever. Like, how do I sign up to do, to work with drawings? And so it was just kind of those two things happening in tandem. And then one day you realize, like, wait a second, like people can draw construction. And I was like, yeah, that's a done deal. And that sort of epiphany was probably, I don't know, I was probably 13, 14 years old when it was like, yeah, that's my job.
Yeah, and it's usually making that connection. Like, I always took art classes and stuff, and then it's
Mhm.
like, well, how do I do something artsy or making, creating, and drawing? And until, like, I think I took more technical wood shop and
Nice.
I learned
Cool.
hand drafting, that was my first glimpse because my family were more like teachers, business professionals.
Oh,
It's like next generation before that where I get into like bricklayers and craftsmen. So it's like,
yeah.
oh, if I had access to like those great uncles, like that would have been so much
Right.
fun.
Right. But it skipped a generation, and now it's on you to pass that on.
Yeah, exactly. I bring everything together. So you had started your own firm. So
Mhm.
before we get to you shifting, what
Mhm.
got you to start your own firm and make that shift from working for somebody versus doing it on your own?
It's probably a few things, to be honest. I always I had an entrepreneurial spirit in me always. So I knew at some point that would rise to the top, and I'd eventually go out on my own. But I think what really led me in that direction is I practice primarily residential architecture, and there's not a lot of big firms that want to touch residential with 1,000-foot pole, and nor are there like too many firms that like really like licensed architects that are really passionate about residential in my area, like where I was willing to, I had a wife and kids, and you're only willing to commute so far to do certain things. So
Mhm.
within my area, I didn't really identify with too many firms where I would say, yeah, like I want to run a firm like them. They do, really contemporary homes and really cool things. And, I'm going to go work for them. That firm didn't exist for me. I worked for some amazing firms who taught me all kinds of cool things and worked on some brilliant projects. But there just got to be a point where it's like, no, I enjoy this, but I don't love this. And if I'm going to, find this career fulfilling, I think I need to embark on my own and go after my own projects. Um, and that let me scratch that residential itch that I've had my whole life. I still have. I still gravitate towards residential design constantly, even online. Scrolling or looking through magazines. I want to see how what's new in residential design.
Yeah. Did you always keep your firm just you, or did you ever grow it? Like, how did that growth or change over the 14 years happen, or what
So
happened?
I maxed out at me plus three other employees. So the biggest I ever got was four of us. Um, and so I did, and again, I didn't want to get I got some advice when I was in college from an architect professor who said, be careful how successful you get, because the more sort of the bigger you get, and this was his own experience, but he says, I feel disconnected from the thing that got me into architecture in the first place. He said he loved to, design and, work on drawings. He says, well, now you got a firm of 20 people. You're running a business. You're not doing details anymore. You're not sort of, you don't get all that, the luxury of time to sit down and design buildings to the depth that you might want to. You may have to have other people do those things. So, yeah, I never wanted to be huge. I like the boutique idea of,
Mhm.
small but powerful firm. And yeah, so that's what I went after.
Yeah, and there's firms of all sizes. It's crazy that what the statistic is like 70% of our profession has their own firm, but then when you look at the breakdown of like where people are, the quantity of people's in the large firm, but there's still a huge quantity of
Yeah.
small firms that are less than 10 people or solo architects.
Yeah.
And it's a really fascinating number when you compare it to like lawyers that still tend to still work in companies rather than starting their own.
Yeah.
So,
And I've never been a lawyer, but I think it'd be interesting to compare the two, because I don't know, maybe it's an autonomy
mhm.
thing in law. Maybe you get a little more sort of flexibility to take certain cases or do certain things. But yeah, boutique residential was kind of always my thing, and so I just went and designed the firm that I wanted. Right, the place, the work that I would enjoy seeing, or the place that I always wanted to work for. I was like, okay, I'll just do that myself.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for anybody to create that firm they always wanted? Like, was there any hard lessons or anything along the way that really stuck out to you?
Yeah, the biggest one that I didn't think you were going to ask me this today. The biggest one that I think I like to share with people is when there comes a moment where you work by yourself and then it just gets to be too much where you need another person. And so what is that other person? What role are they going to fill? And the automatic answer is like drafting, right? Like let them do all the drafting. And in hindsight, I think I would encourage people to examine what your first hire is, um, because I think in hindsight, I probably could have used more admin help. I was generally pretty quick at drawing, drafting, detailing. Like I could get through that stuff pretty quick. Couldn't stand contracts and invoices and proposals and all those things. So there's an example, Katelyn, right? It's like, okay,
Hmm.
you got busy, and so now you hire someone else to do the drafting, and now you're doing proposals and you're doing invoicing and you're doing paperwork, and it's like maybe that should be the other way around. Keep the people doing what they do best, keep them on those tasks, and that might be better for the company. I eventually got to that, but it took me that sort of not mix up, but that experience to figure that out.
Yeah, and you're not the first one that I've heard, like, thinking of it from a business standpoint and less of a production.
Hmm.
Because when you come from other practices, it's always, trying to hire production work, trying to hire work that's cheaper in terms of an hourly rate. And it can be scary if you're trying to hire somebody at your same pay level,
Hmm.
but doing something completely different or bringing in a more senior admin to handle all those paperwork tasks that you may not want to handle
Right.
and still leave the drafting to you. And so it's really taking a step back and not doing that automatic, "I need a drafts person."
Right,
And
right.
so
Even somebody that could run defense for you. If somebody calls,
mhm,
um, somebody that can answer the phone, somebody that can cover for you, somebody that might know enough about what's happening with the business where they can answer the questions and leave you, sort of protect you, right? So you can keep doing the
mhm.
the heavy lifting behind the scenes, different kind of heavy lifting. But yeah, that would be my.
Yeah,
But if I had a time machine, I'd go back and just tweak that.
yeah. And so then after 14 years of business, have you closed the firm entirely, or have you just pulled back that if something comes up, sure? Because
No,
you mentioned you just got licensed in the States.
yep. So the official term is I have there is it's not easy to close a practice. Um there's a lot that goes into it. And so I did have to do all the paperwork to officially retire from architectural practice. So in the province of Ontario, I have retired, that is the term, from architectural practice. Um, but there is, if I could share a quick story about that, because I think if
Yeah.
anybody listening to this that might have, if you're running your own practice, at some point you're going to have to either sell or phase out or what, however you're going to get out of it. It
Yeah,
was
and you don't usually learn it until you have to do it
do it.
yourself.
Yeah, and it's
So,
not like a
yeah.
2-week process where it's like, all right, just sign these couple of pieces of paper and you're all set. Like there's this really weird stretch of time where you have to finish out, you're responsible for projects to the end, right? So you're finishing
Mhm.
projects, you're staying on to finish those projects, but you're not taking on new projects. So there's a very interesting cash flow situation that happens when you're like CA is not, it's not raining money at that point, right? So it's just, you know,
Yeah.
sort of waiting for projects to be completed while saying no to people that are calling you for new projects. So your like I said, the cash flow situation became really interesting of like, okay, well, I'm still paying rent and I'm still paying internet and I'm still paying for my license and all that, but it's like I don't have any new money coming in to cover that, and that's all part of the process. I
Mhm.
realize that going into it, but if you have a lot of projects on the go and you're trying to retire or close out, it could be a really long process where you're not. Maybe you took a small job, one that you could sneak in, get in and out real quick.
Yeah.
That wasn't going to keep you on the hook for a year, but yeah, that was a really interesting adventure too. But so yeah, to
Yeah,
answer
so
your
how
question, yeah, the firm is not practicing architecture anymore.
got it. But in terms of residential, since most of my work's been commercial,
Hmm.
how long are your residential projects? Because I know I hit projects that, other things come up in CA and certain projects tend to just linger and you're trying to close. But like if you're
Hmm.
trying to close your firm and you're stuck with a project that lingers, you're like,
Hmm.
no, I need this to go
Right.
away. So
Yes.
what's that what's that timeline on the residential side when you're trying to figure that out and closing?
So it depends, and I don't know how deep you want to get into this right now, but it depends on the arrangement of your contract with a residential project. So in Ontario, um, where I practiced, if a building is of a certain size, so certain footprint and certain amount of stories above grade, you would be required to um, sign
Do
a
CA.
yeah, do CA. And I'm trying to think of the name of the certificate that we had to sign, but to commitment general review, commitment to general review.
Hmm.
And but for residential, you don't have to sign that. So that's, you didn't have to see the project through to the end. So if it was a residential project, kind of once you had the and if they didn't keep you on for CA, then you were kind of done once the permit was issued.
Yeah. Now what if you're closed, if any projects come back that like if you're able to close and then needed something after, I don't know if that's an issue. I don't know if you've run into that.
I haven't. No, I made sure there was a lot of blood, sweat,
Everything
and tears
was
that went into make
done.
sure that, yeah, because I don't like those surprise phone calls. Like, hey, guess what? That, the thing that you thought was going okay is not going okay anymore, and here we are. So no, it was a lot of open communication with a lot of people, sort of being clear on what I was doing, and if you need it, ask me now. Um, and luckily, it was just it was a right spot where there wasn't too much chaos going on, so it was easy to slip out.
Yeah. And then from like maybe not so much the cash flow perspective, how did you decide you wanted to close versus try to sell and hand off your projects to another firm? Like, was there a decision there that needed to be made, or were you already solo at that point?
I never really considered selling
If that
the
makes sense.
practice to be no, I think it kind of makes sense. But selling the practice to me I wasn't too interested in it because my whole practice was me, right? It was my face, it was my name,
Hmm.
it was um, my fingerprints on everything, and I think that was the value of it, was that it was me, and to sell it off would um, I wasn't going to be working there anymore. It's not like I would have stayed on as an architect, project architect or something,
As
and
yeah,
contributed. So I just wanted to keep all that um, keep all that for myself. Who knows? Maybe one day, I don't know, in 10, 20 years from now, I fire it back up and do a couple of houses for my kids or something. But yeah, right now that's not in the cards. They probably won't be able to afford
yeah,
them
you
by
never
the time
know.
they need one, anyways, right? Sorry, kids.
Yeah,
We're
I
trying to
was
help, but
yeah, anytime I look at like I don't really watch HGTV anymore because I just get frustrated by the storylines that they create. But it's always the ones in Canada where it's like, hey, I'm a teacher and somebody else doesn't work at all, and then they're paying for like $4 million homes, and I'm like, what are you doing? This doesn't even make sense.
hold on. We got to
But
clarify something here, that I think is a really big difference on both sides of the board. Teachers get paid quite well in Canada, so it's
hmm.
not. I know I think I have an idea of what teachers make in the States, and it's very different from what our teachers and principals get paid, from what I know.
Now I'm gonna go look that up after we're
Yeah, yeah,
done
yeah.
chatting.
Look
To
that up.
know.
You might be surprised. Teaching is considered a good job up here. Like um it's a good place to be.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna look that up. But um I guess I want to go down the rabbit holes of unexpected things. There's kind of two tracks. So I'm sure you never anticipated your career being where you are today.
Hmm.
And so you had mentioned working with RIB
Hmm.
Spec now, but then you are also very active on social media. So what makes sense to start with first? I know chronologically what comes first, but
Let's talk about the pivot, because
okay. We'll stick with the
social
business side.
social media played a huge role in my decision to get out of practice. So there was a moment, a period of time and it's not that long ago, Caitlin. This is like, I talk a lot about
Hmm.
social media, and this is where I like try to encourage people so much. Like, you have no idea how much one post can flip your life upside down in the best possible way. And, all these just blows the door wide open for opportunities. So in between August and October of 2023, my Instagram in particular, my TikTok was always kind of like, gradually climbing at a really steady pace. But my Instagram was, I was at like 2,000 followers, 2,100, 2,200 for years. It was just, oh, your aunt followed you, and then you got a new client and they followed you. It's like one here, one there.
Hmm.
Um, and then I believe it was August, I posted a video, and it was one of those like weird toilet videos that are in like random locations that whatever. And I just had this idea. I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be like funny to sort of like draw it out by hand and be like I like that would ever happen, right? And then like kind of reveal it to have had happened. Um, and so I did that, and it like I got 350,000 views on that, which is just might as well be a billion views. Like, I had never experienced anything like that before. And then the numbers just started to climb. The followers were like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 7, and they were like hundreds per day. And I'm like, oh, this is addictive. This is really fun. It's like just watching a slot machine that just keeps paying out. So it's like, okay,
Hmm.
I'm back to work, doing my thing. And then in October, I posted another one. I was like, oh, well, let's try this, let's try this machine again and see what happens. Um, and I posted another one of those random, like, poorly placed toilets on a staircase videos, and it hit, I don't know, 5 or 6 million views. And then the next day I posted another, and that hit like 3 million. And then the next day after, I posted another, and that hit like 9 million views. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? So I got, all told, there was a period of 2 weeks where I got about 100,000 new followers, which is just,
Wow.
I still say it now and kind of laugh like, yeah, right. No, like, really, I have like the screenshots to prove it. And so once you start, like, for me, once I felt that, um, those that many eyeballs on me, and how the connections you could form with people and the opportunities that exist. People want you to now talk about their product. They want you to,
Hmm.
come stay at their hotel and talk about their hotel. Like, all of a sudden people are like, they see you as something else, right? And I just kind of got me thinking of like, you know, what else is there to this? So
Hmm.
I really got interested in the public speaking, the just connecting with people, right? And so I kind of pulled um, a friend of mine aside in total confidence. Do you know Amy Baker? Um,
Not
she's an
personally, but
architect.
I
Okay.
I know the name, and
Okay. Everybody knows the name.
yeah.
So awesome. So Amy, I kind of pulled her aside one day and I said, listen, I'm kind of not enjoying running a practice as much as I'd like to. And this social media thing is taking off. And I feel like there's something that I could do with this. And she said, I know some people at RIB SpecLink that are looking for somebody like you. Do you want me to put you in touch with them? And I said, sure. Right, is one of the, sure. What the heck?
Why not?
What could happen? What could come out of this? And I had chats with them, and it was awesome. They said all the right things. I apparently said all the right things, and really loved everything that was happening around it. And so I went for it. And I didn't close my firm right away. I kept it open for another year. Just like, I'm not going to close it all down and then I wake up one day and it's like, oh, Dory, we don't need you anymore. So so I just
Yeah.
wanted that healthy
The
overlap.
backup plan.
Yeah. Um and that was part of the plan too, with like, you're saying no to all those new projects coming in, while having this new job helped sort of build that foundation of cash flow that you could sort of, it's just juggling, constant juggling, Katelyn.
Hmm.
And yeah, then once I felt really comfortable and good in that, then I started to make those, okay, like, it's time to wind it down now, because it's expensive to keep a practice open with, whether it's in employees or insurance or um, continuing education or conferences, whatever things you need to keep that afloat. Yeah, all costs money.
Yeah, there's a lot of expenses with it.
Yeah, there absolutely are. And so I got into SpecLink, and now I'm living out all my like extrovert, you know, uh, opportunities here, right? So hosting webinars and doing public speaking at conferences, um, helping promote the product to people at conferences and trade shows, and my network has completely blown up by having made that move. And so it's been really fulfilling for me. And so as of today, there are no regrets whatsoever, not even one.
So that was what, probably a year and a half ago, if you just closed
So
the practice, or
it was June 2024 that I officially started with them, and then it was August of this year that I officially closed the practice. So what is that, 14 months?
yeah. But even looking at that timeline, because your post that took off was August and October of 23, and then not even halfway through 24, like that's less than a year later,
Mm-hmm.
there's a big shift.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how just a post less than a year prior can just pivot and change your mindset and where you end up going.
Absolutely. And I know it's I wish I could do a better job of relaying that experience to people, of like, you just staying open to what's out there, and it might show up in an untraditional costume. It's not, I don't work at a practice. This is the first remote job I've ever had, which has been its own kind of weird learning curve of just,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a social guy. I'll go over to your desk and I'll ask you in person about this detail or something like that. Now everything's like a scheduled meeting or a call, or you know uh DM or whatever. So it's yeah, it's been so rewarding, as it's been a learning experience for me too.
Yeah. So do you, I guess, for your own Instagram versus what you're doing with RIB SpecLink, like, I've seen posts on about SpecLink in your main Instagram. Like, are
Mhm.
you still owner of your Instagram, and
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's me.
how's that work?
So they don't have any problems with what I do. I mean, I'd obviously been doing it since um since I joined them.
Prior
So
to
yeah,
you going to them? Mhm.
exactly. So and this came up last year. I presented at the CSI conference, and somebody had asked. I presented about social media for architects, and somebody had asked, like, "Are you worried about making personal posts on your professional Instagram? And what happens, if if you say something that your company might not appreciate, but it's your personal Instagram?" And so, funny enough, our CEO was sitting in the audience. So I asked him to stand up, and I asked him, I said, what would happen if suddenly I became like, really inflammatory in my content, like some extreme political, religious, racial, I don't know, just something that would be like, oh my God, like, what, stop saying that. Um, and he said, so plainly, it's like, well, it's your own Instagram, but I think at some point we'd need to have a talk. I'm like, yeah, that's fair. I can't be up there wearing, t-shirts that have the company logo on them, spewing some garbage about something else. But luckily I keep my content pretty uh, family friendly mostly. So I don't feel like I'm in jeopardy of that. But yeah, all my socials are my own. And any SpecLink
Okay.
post I do on my personal socials is just for, to represent where I am.
Yeah, because I know with social media and posting, you're really trying to grab everybody in the hook. So for
Hmm.
anybody not doing social media, that's that first couple seconds
Yeah.
to get people enticed or seeing that initial image statement. And sometimes it has to be polarizing to just get people interested, even if the topic doesn't, go crazy. I've
Right.
had Evelyn Lee saying I need to be more harsh in my content, but then I've got other professionals that like, oh, don't piss off Katelyn at work or she'll post about it. I'm like, I don't post anything within the last 6 months of issues. All of my gripes are from like years ago.
Well,
So
if Evelyn wants to,
I find it funny, the comments.
yeah, and I get that sometimes too. It's like, don't post about this on social media. Like, people want to share their opinion with me, but like afraid that I'm going to flip it and be like, call them out on social media, and I'm like, that's not my style. But if Evelyn ever wants to talk about how to, her hooks, have her reach out to me. That's awesome.
Yeah. So what does being a brand ambassador mean? So what's your day-to-day with that job?
The sort of probably highest mission statement is just to make sure everybody on the planet knows about SpecLink. That's the shortest answer I can give you. And we get that message out there through as many different avenues as I can handle. So I host
Mhm.
a bi-weekly webinar for spec writers and spec writing called Spec Talk. I am very active on LinkedIn promoting the software as well. I speak at multiple conferences per year about social media, but they're usually conferences that we have a booth at or that we're doing appearances at.
Mhm.
Anyways, this towards the end of this year and early next year, I'll be getting in front of local chapters to discuss social media as well, AIA chapters, CSI chapters, and I think you and I chatted about that.
Yeah.
To
Now I got to
Yeah.
work and see what I can combine for Pittsburgh and have you come down this way.
Oh, and I gotta get to Falling Water soon. So like, let's bake that into like next summer or
Yeah.
something. Um, but
Yeah, I think they're doing renovations. So let me check to make sure they're done because it's always sad when you go there and they're doing like fixing the cantilever that
oh, I
never
know.
actually was meant to work. Maybe
um,
Frank Lloyd Wright should have a
yeah,
structural engineer do it.
just go get Falling Water to hurry up so so I can
Yeah.
plan my summer vacation. So really, it's doing that. It's being an ambassador for the product. So making sure as many architects and spec writers and engineers know that it exists, how great it is, and if they're interested in it, to make it easily available for them to access the information that they need to learn more about it.
Awesome. And I'm still just baffled that it's from like posts from a year ago. I figured it was like posts from like 3 years ago and you've built it up over time. But
It's
it's crazy how time
it's
can just flip.
fast. It's and it's important to remember too that as fast as it happened, it could collapse just as quick probably, and that goes back to the like, careful what you're saying online, don't just be my before man, the I spend as much time thinking and rewatching my videos before I click the share button than I do making the videos. Like, how could that be
Mhm.
misinterpreted? How could that be offensive? How could that be? And I just try to, like, you can't please everybody, definitely, but
Yeah.
at least keep it within the boundaries of good taste, while still being true to myself. And yeah, it like in like 2 seconds, my career's upside down and pointing in a different direction, and I literally couldn't be happier.
Yeah. And I'll even say this for other architects. I have not had the mind-blowing success yet on social media. Hopefully mentorDINO can get there at some point. I've had the spikes that it's like, you start getting a lot more people seeing it and it's really interesting to what hits. But even without having, a mind-blowing real takeoff for me, I've seen my career absolutely change and pivot over the last 3 years I've had mentorDINO and
Hmm.
podcasting, putting out content in social media that if I hadn't done that and I just was still sitting in a firm and sure you can go to AIA events and you can volunteer in
Right.
organizations, but that social media has linked me to professionals across the country. I have professionals I can talk to and ask any question, whether it be, you thinking about pivoting out of architecture and you have somebody you can talk to in confidence. I talk to podcasters around the country that are architects that's, hey, this happened, or, sometimes we get together and just have a call and it's, hey, here are the gripes. Okay, you're seeing this too. You're having these issues. And it's created that other community and network. And it just kind of sucks that they're not all down the street and we can go get a beer at the end of the day.
No kidding.
But
So
it,
last
I,
night,
yeah.
to that, I used to do it more sort of regimented than I do, but I go live on TikTok. I try for once a week, and I'll just design something. I don't know, whatever. Maybe it's a weird shaped house, or it's based on something else. And the people that I've met just in the comments section, who are other architects, other professionals from around the world, like literally last night it was like New Zealand and Australia and England, and a lot of them are other design professionals who want to connect on LinkedIn, who want to stay in touch. And like, without this social media thing, how on earth would you ever meet these people? Like, you just wouldn't.
Exactly.
And now I've got, like, it's really cool to be like, yeah, I've got architect friends in all the corners of the globe. So if I wanted to go on a trip one day, or like, you've got people that in different
Hmm.
places, you can reach out to them, and they're not competing with you for anything. So the relationship is a little more genuine from a like helping perspective. um, and
Yeah.
that speaking personally, Katelyn, as a high level extrovert, that is like, it's been the greatest gift for me, is just being able to connect with people like that, um, from our industry, but from every corner of the planet. It's been, and I'm glad you've experienced that too, because it's what you do and what I do with my socials. It's kind of in isolation, right? Like, you're going to go edit this
Hmm.
podcast, and you're probably going to do it by yourself, and you're probably, you know, gets I know I get sick of my own voice by the time I'm done editing a video, and every like why
Yep.
did I tilt my head like that? Like, oh well, and then you just kind of put it into the wild and see what happens, and then then you start to meet people as a result of that, and it's a magical thing. It's really special.
Yeah, and even going to conferences. So, like, wasn't this past year, the year before that, I went to my first AI national conference, and
Mhm.
it's a massive conference, but I had already, I think, had 50 episodes by then on the podcast, and I kept running into people either through the ARE stories I collected for the blog or the podcast. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't as scary. It's like, oh, I knew faces and I knew things, but I haven't met them in person before. So created this whole other kind of excitement to see people rather than feeling like this tiny individual in the sea of thousands of people at this massive
Yeah.
conference.
Yeah,
So,
and that's that feeling, right? Like, it's I went to AIA this year and last year, and it's just, yeah, you see those people and you're like, hey, like, we know each other, and they're it's just so cool to be able to put a face to everything you know about them online, but like to
yeah.
meet people in person. Yeah, and I think that was DC, Washington, that you were talking about, right? Your first, the 2 years ago.
Uh, Boston.
Boston was
Boston
this
was
year.
2 years. No, was it Boston?
Boston was this year.
Yes, Boston was this year. Women in
Boston.
Leadership Summit was Boston, then Chicago. Yeah.
Okay. And
So yes,
regardless,
DC.
whatever
Yes,
conference
because
it was.
it was DC because it was the convention center underneath. So now I remember.
Okay.
Too many
Yeah.
conferences.
They do start to blur together. Somebody was asking me about the last time I was in Vancouver, and I'm like, was that 24 or 25? And I'm like, was this year. But it was just like, you're right. They're blurring together.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. But with all the social media and even when you were balancing everything with firm and working for RIB, how did you juggle all these various things? Because, social media, it's not just a quick, easy post. There's editing, there's finding
Yeah.
content, there's putting it out there, and then doing spec talk, actually having meetings, going to conferences, family and life.
Hmm.
There's a lot of moving pieces. So how are you juggling all those things?
Um, my brain works better like that, in short sort of bursts of creative energy like that. So first and foremost, not to be the whatever guy, but my family like has my back through and through on all this insanity that I put them through. They know that this is what I do, and some days I'm, buried in my phone or on a computer doing editing weird videos, about toilets on staircases, and some days I'm just at my computer. Some days I'm doing this. Some days I'm traveling, but in and around there, it's really trying to compartmentalize, like, just, okay, I am done work now, and for the next period of time I get to hang with my family, and then we're going to bed, and then in the morning we do this. When I was running my own firm, I didn't open my office till 9 a.m. That way I could, and my kids were really young when it started, and that was all by design to
Hmm.
just make sure we could have breakfast together and I could walk my kids to school in the morning. Um, because I wouldn't get those days back. I was used to
Yeah.
work in Detroit, so I would leave home at 7 in the morning. So you're up at 6 and you're moving quick and shoving Cheerios in kids' faces and just it's the chaos. You probably understand it's the chaos
Yeah.
of the mornings. And so I think my personality type is really geared towards doing a lot of sporadic things, and that's it's exhausting some days, but in general I
Hmm.
prefer working on a lot of little things versus one. Like if I had to sit down and detail a hospital right now, like I'd lose my mind. It's too it's too long of a
Too
road.
long.
I like the little pieces and the bits and stuff.
Yeah, but I think that's even important in picking if somebody does, still practice architecture or in a firm, project type does have very different schedules. I've worked
Mhm.
on a very large hospital that's going to not be done for another 6 years. And so that's a really long lead
Mhm.
time to get there. Or if you really like long lead times or really long expanse time to work on something, research may also be a great tool
Yeah.
because you have to really dive into those details. But if you're quick, if you like those quick things, it's natural that social media makes sense for you because it's just quick beta testing, see what works, doesn't
Yeah,
work, try it out, get it out there. If it fails, who cares? Move on to the next thing.
exactly. And
So,
let me ask you this, that hospital that's going to take 6 years to build, when do we find out if it was a success? It takes 6
exactly. Never.
years to figure out that, hey, remember that thing that we tried in the lobby? Yeah, it didn't work. It didn't do what we thought it was going to do. So now next time we do this, we'll maybe, do it a slightly different way. It's like the feedback
Yeah.
loop is huge in architecture. Whereas in uh, social media or interacting with people on sort of a more uh, shorter time span that I do now, I get the feedback loop is much much quicker. So yeah, I could, you'll post this podcast and we'll know pretty quick if it gets good views or not, right? We don't have to wait 5 years for
Hmm.
that. We'll know. Same with social media posts. Same with, if I go to a conference and I'm speaking with other architects and whatnot, I can come back and say that conference was a success or not a success relatively quickly. But that hospital, and it's going to take a lot of years before you get the users in there and really get that feedback of what it's like to work in that building.
Yeah. And then how many hospitals did you design in between that design and
Yep.
getting the feedback loop that you're like, "Ooh, crap, I did that
Oh,
same design that I pawned off it was gonna work great."
yep. Yep.
So,
Yeah. We just did it on our last 3 hospitals. It'll be fine.
then everything changes.
Yeah.
Ah, but I always like wrapping up my podcast with this final question, and it's,
Okay.
what advice do you have for young professionals just starting their careers?
I would, I would, well, I think the first thing that I would say is it's your career, right? So don't feel obligated to do the things you think you're supposed to do to be an architect. I would encourage young graduates or people just kind of getting into it. It's like, if you like to do residential, pursue it. If you hate residential, don't pursue it. Don't do those projects. Really try to be an accurate representation of yourself, something that's true to you throughout your entire career. Um, we are excellent. We are all taught. We're all very good at designing buildings, designing projects, designing things. Um, if we took those same skills and applied them to our careers, of what is the, it's not unlike designing a building. What's the end goal, right? Where do we want to be at the end of this project, and kind of working backwards from there. If I know this hospital needs so many beds and so many, support spaces, whatever it needs, you work backwards from that, right? You establish the end result and you work backwards from that. I've always tried to do that career wise as well. It's like, what do you want it to be? Like, what do you, day you retire, what do you want to be able to say that you did? And okay, then work towards that. And that'll change along the way, right? Like
Mhm.
there's, things that will come up and influence certain things. And that's one of the reasons why I pivoted professionally is this other thing came up that I couldn't see 14 years ago because it didn't exist 14 years ago. And so, yeah, just remaining open to that. But I knew once that opportunity presented itself, it was the right move for me because I knew what I needed to feel professionally satisfied, and
Mm-hmm.
that was it. So, yeah, I would just encourage them to design your career the way you would design a building. Really take a look at it, and if it's going in the wrong direction, if those rooms just aren't fitting, undo, 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 and like take it in a new direction.
Shift.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess a tangent last question.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for somebody that's hitting that wall of, ooh, do I want to go be architect adjacent? You mentioned kind of
Oh,
hitting
man.
that.
Hmm. I'd have so many questions for them. I'd want to hear more of their story because
Mm-hmm.
um, I'd want to know why. Like, what is it professionally? Like, is it after like, oh, I worked for one firm for 8 months and I don't feel like I want to get out of architecture. It's like, okay, maybe you should try another firm first.
Yeah.
Maybe like I felt like I had enough. Prior to going on my own, I worked for 3 firms, multiple years each firm, and then went on my own for 14 years. So I felt I had a pretty good cross section of what it was like to work in architecture. But the architecture adjacent opportunities, it's crazy how many licensed architects are working for product manufacturers, like roofing companies and brick companies and window and door companies. And um, our knowledge as architects in those industries is huge. It's so highly
Mm-hmm.
valued and appreciated. Um, so there is it's and it's how do I want to I'm going to choose my next words carefully here. It's it doesn't have to be a pay cut, and it doesn't have to be um, like selling out or anything like that. It's just it's a different career. It's using your skills to do something else. And one thing that I'll
Mm-hmm.
always advocate for is architects are trained to be problem solvers and decision makers and critical thinkers. And those skills you could apply those to a law office, you could apply them to a brick manufacturer, you can apply those to uh, being a professor at a university. They're invaluable skills that we get from school. We just learn to apply those to buildings. But if you back out and apply those to other things, it's a huge advantage. So explore it because it's a really fun world too, and you don't have to die on your drafting table, and you
Mm-hmm.
can actually there is a life that exists that's not 200% stress constantly.
Yeah. And everybody's career can go in any which direction, whether you love architecture, stay in it, and that's your
Mhm.
practice, or one day you decide, hey, an opportunity comes up to try something else. You never
Nobody
know
said, yep,
when and where that's going to come from.
nothing says you got to do it forever, right? Um, you can try it. It's like, one of the things, 'cause there's a lot of things in my head that I had to kind of get over. But like, am I regularly making the right decision? Am I like, it's kind of hard to go back now at this point. And it was just, I remember thinking of like athletes, right? It's like, okay, they play a career, they do it until a certain point, and then they do other things. Like they got to do
Mm-hmm.
something that not everybody gets to do. And so I feel like I contributed um, to my profession, to architecture. I designed and built some really cool buildings around my city that I'm really, really proud of. And I felt fulfilled. So, um, yeah,
No, that's perfect. So, very long last question. So,
it's okay.
um, and it, and if anybody wants to get a hold of you, wants you to come out and do a presentation to their local chapter, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Ooh, the best way. Well, I could leave my email address in the show notes or something like that. Maybe that would be an easy way to do that. But
I can do that.
If you Google my name, Dory Azar, Dorya, I was going to say Azar, Azar for my American friends. Um, all my Instagram and TikTok will pop up, LinkedIn, and I'm really responsive to all my DMs and any way somebody decides. Or doryazar.com is another viable way to reach out to me. So just find me, reach out to me, and then I'll take it where it needs to go from there.
And I'll put some of those links all in the show notes to make it one less step for everybody. So I want to thank you, Dory, for taking the time to speak with me today. It is always fantastic speaking with you.
Oh, thanks, Katelyn. This has been a lot of fun. I enjoyed this. Let's do it again in person at an AIA conference.
Yeah, I need to get to one because I messed up CSI this year, not realizing it was in Cleveland, and then it overlapped with a deadline at work, and I was like, crap. So
No problem.
I'm going to
We'll
keep
get
an
you
eye
there.
on it this time.
We'll get you there.
I hope you enjoyed our discussion today. Learn some advice to take with you and see how our industry is all tied together to create the world around us. Check out the description below for any links or resources we discussed. If you liked the episode, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment below. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support finding that career path that best works for them. If you know someone that has inspired your own career that you'd like me to interview, let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me via my website or LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share their story or your own. Thank you again, and I cannot wait for the next career story I get to share with you next week.